Okay. Today, my guest is Professor Steve Werner. I'll keep my introduction short to maximize our time with him. In the next 30 minutes or so, we'll talk about Steve as a person, Professor Werner as a thought leader and an esteemed scholar, and finally as a mentor to many PhD students and junior faculty. For the sake of time, I'll skip many of his accomplishments and give you a very quick snapshot. Steve Werner is JPMorgan Chase Chaired Professor of IB at University of Houston. His research focuses on various human resource management issues, particularly compensation and international HRM. He has published extensively in our top journals. He has authored, co-authored, or edited more than 6 books, 65 articles, and developed many international HRM, global management, and compensation courses and course materials. He received many teaching, service, and research awards. He served the field as an editorial board member at Journal of Management Studies, Journal of Management, International Journal of HRM, Human Resource Management Review, Journal of Business Research, among others. Steve is also very active in AOM's HR division and served as Executive Committee member, Task Force Chair, International Scholarship Committee Chair, HR Division Conference Program member, among others. Thank you, Steve, for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, not exactly. You're in space, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's a great.
I am in
content.
Houston, home of NASA. So
Perfect. So, Steve, what did you want to become when you were a child?
I never really knew. When people asked me, I would say I like to travel. So I knew I wasn't going to be a flight attendant or a pilot. So I said I'd probably be a manager of an airport, maybe. And that'll give me a lot of chances to travel. So my goal was always to see how could I travel for inexpensively.
So you're originally from Houston?
I'm originally from I was born in Toronto, Canada, and then moved to California when I was 2. And so I grew up in California, got my PhD at Florida, and then now from there went to Houston. I've been in Houston 28 years.
Perfect. How did you choose academia?
I was always a good student, and I went to I got an undergrad in mathematics and undergrad in computer science, and then got an MBA, and I was working all through college. But then I got my first real job was at National Semiconductor in California. And I was there for about a year looking at my colleagues in their cubicles, and it just hit me like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I can't sit here in this cubicle and do spreadsheets. And so I just reapplied at a number of schools and decided I was always good at school, and I thought it'd be kind of nice to be academic, even though not really knowing anything about it. And so I went and got my PhD at University of Florida.
How did you choose international HR or international business area within academia?
Yeah, it chose me. I was in the Department of Management. I got my PhD in HR, really, and so I was really an HR guy, but I had a colleague who became a friend, Lance Brothers, who was getting his PhD. It was actually his second PhD at the time, from the Department of Marketing there. And we just started working on a paper. He wanted to he had an idea for a paper, and I worked with him on it. And it was my first publication was in the Columbia Journal of World Business. And I just kind of started working with him. And then later I started working with him and his brother. So you'll see brothers Werner a lot. And working with them in the IB field, which was really very interesting. But my heart was really in HR and was in compensation. And so eventually I had these 2 really distinct streams, which was FDI and IB and HR and compensation. And I just thought, I got to bring these together. And I started doing, I edited a book about HR in North America as part of a series that Susan Jackson and Randall Schuler, among others, were the editors on, asked me to be a book editor. And then they asked me to be a book editor for a book on the Routledge same series on global compensation. And so then I really started getting into international HR and found that interesting.
Perfect. Thank you. Something that is not on your CV that people might find interesting about you.
Oh gosh, probably nothing is interesting about me. For entertainment, I like playing pinball, which is an old time sport that very few people do. So that's my mental health break, is I go play pinball somewhere.
Oh, okay. Do you have a machine at home?
I don't.
Huh?
No, I don't. But I have made friends with some colleagues like at Rice and so on who have machines. So there is like a pinball subculture out there that nobody knows about.
Um, okay. If you stopped being an academic, what would be the second best career path for you?
Boy, I love traveling. So it would be something maybe a purchasing agent. I think there's buyers and sellers. I'm not a seller. I'm more of a buyer. So maybe a purchasing agent that has to travel a lot, something like that.
Perfect. Regrets. Have you got any regrets?
No, not really. I guess, yeah, no. I guess I'd just go back to the old My Way song by Frank Sinatra. Regrets, I've had a few, but too few to mention. So yeah, no major regrets. I think every aspect has been a learning experience and has been, I wouldn't give any of it up.
What are you most passionate about?
Yeah. There are some people that say that I'm not passionate enough about anything. So, but I am passionate about, I do enjoy travel. I'm passionate about teaching. I'm passionate about doing good work and making sure that you're doing the right thing.
Perfect. Now, let's switch gears to research. Let's say you're traveling and you're stranded in a small village, and then locals are curious about you, what you do for a living, and how do you explain the importance of your research or what you do? And how do you explain it to people who are laymen?
I just explained that we try to make managers better managers and companies better companies, and that we try to do well by increasing our knowledge and educating people how to treat employees better, how to make their company more successful within the framework of, doing things that benefit employees, benefit the company, benefit shareholders, benefit all stakeholders. Mm-hmm. So we try to make the world better through better management of companies. That I think is very important. That I think as you get more economically sound, quality of life goes up in general, and that's what we achieve.
When you teach these courses, the ones that you teach on international HR compensation, over time, did you see a difference in the students' body about how they approach your topics?
It's interesting. We get students here kind of that are all over the board, that are very either diverse from international experiences or that have never left Houston in their entire lives. So one of the things that I'm quite proud of, that I think I've helped achieve here, is we're very have a substantial presence in the study abroad field, and so over the years we do about 4 study abroad trips in my department a year, and take students all over the world, when many of them have never gone outside of Texas, and so students just really see that frequently as a life-changing experience. So I've done over 40 study abroad trips in my career. And all that's probably one of the most satisfying aspects. But I really haven't seen great change where we get such a mix that makes it still there. There's still people that haven't left Texas.
These are 2-week long programs?
1 week. Yeah, one week, generally graduate. And so the graduate students can get a week off work, and it's 1 week. Historically, we've done places like Berlin, Germany, Prague, Czech Republic, Hong Kong, Beijing or China, Chile, Santiago, Chile. Those are the most common places we go. Yeah.
Interesting. About omitted variables in IB research, things that have received little attention, maybe we forgot about them underdeveloped areas, contexts, topics? What would you say?
I think the underdeveloped areas, either really big picture things or really small picture things. It's when I think of big picture, I think of, when we're looking at different across countries and we're looking at research across countries, and we see a research that's done all in China or all in South Korea or all in America or all in Germany, or even if there's a few, it's like we kind of accept that we could transfer that knowledge. And I think countries are very different, and we don't do a good job of capturing differences among countries. Hofstede and the culture is so big that's really the only mechanism we have then to look at, okay, culture, and that is supposed to capture everything. But I don't know. I'd like to see, when we look at across countries, controlling for religion, controlling for different politics, different infrastructure, just get more refined in what are really the differences among countries that cause some of the big differences we see in IB.
At least for your research area in international HR or compensation, over the next 5 to 10 years, what do you think are going to be the next big questions, maybe fueled by the COVID, after the pandemic, the changing dynamics?
Yeah, certainly that's one. I think we're going to see more refinement just in generally. So we have, there's a good literature on global compensation, but there's almost nothing on benefits, right? On global benefits and how they differ across countries and how they drive. So right now I'm kind of trying to create some articles and create an area that I'm really interested in, is looking at benefits strategically. And of course, that would have a great implication for multinational companies and for global benefits. And so how can we, I'd like that to be an area, primarily because it's what I'm interested in. But I think there'll be a lot of more refinement of things. I think even just in the way we model relationships. So one of the things that has struck me over the years is almost all our methods are linear, and we're always look at linear relationships. Yet if you actually look at any two things in the relationship, is almost never linear. There's always a diminishing returns, or at some point the curve goes flat, or so I'd like to see us get better at actually predicting and getting those R squares higher through more innovation in methods and in better measures and so
on. Do you write every day? Do you work every day?
I definitely work every day. Maybe not some weekends, but I'm definitely, even with COVID, I was in the office every day. I'm the department chair, so there's a lot of stuff going on there too. But I do work every day, and I enjoy it. I would miss it if I didn't work. I always say, I have a joke that I'll retire when they pry the chalk out of my cold dead hand. But then we stopped using chalk, so that doesn't work anymore. So
yeah, in a state of idle curiosity, I'm talking about this creativity question. Creativity in scholarship, how do people come up with interesting ideas? Where do these great papers come from? How do they come to you?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And in fact, this goes to, opportunities and things that I would recommend to doctoral students, for example. There's a balance of, everybody has an area they're interested in. That maybe it's an extension of their dissertation. It's something I just was always very interested in compensation. I found it very interesting. But there's always going to be, especially if you network and you go out to the conferences and you talk to people, you're going to find lots of interesting areas and lots of people that were working on different things. And so there's going to be opportunities. As a mentor, you work with students that are interested in some area that you may not have ever thought about. So I think there's a balance of kind of being opportunistic and finding things and having them land in your lap, and focusing on an area that you're interested in. Once you're interested in an area, it's almost facilitates itself where, every paper we have has future research to do this. So we're ensuring our own, continuation that every question we answer raises two new ones. So I think in a way that's self-sustaining. Once you're in a nice niche area that you find interesting, there's just kind of no end to the questions that can be generated. But being open to being opportunistic and finding new areas, I think that can be fulfilling too.
Thank you. About the evolving culture of IB scholarship over the years, from your window, how do you see the evolution from where we were at and where are we headed to?
Yeah, I find it an interesting evolution. I think it's probably just the kind of natural, the market at work, right? Where the market is scholars and scholars can write on things they find interesting, and then the reviewers and the editors determine whether or not they deserve a space in our journals. And so it kind of evolves very naturally as to, is something overstudied or not? I'm not sure. The market has spoken, right? And if a paper is not interesting or doesn't contribute anything, it's not going to make it to a top journal. So I think it's evolved very, very naturally, and I think it will continue to do so.
Okay. About the advice portion for young scholars and junior faculty, what are some of the common mistakes that you see across the board that young colleagues usually make, and what's your advice for them?
I'd say some common ones is, unfortunately, we're in a world, if you're in a top research school or one that even aspires to be top research, you've got to focus the top journals. And so you can't spend a lot of time on books. You can't spend a lot of time on just little articles that would make it to littler journals or more narrow journals. Even conference papers are encouraged to get you, but you shouldn't spend a lot of time on them. So I think spending a lot of time early on things that are not going to help your career is probably a mistake, even though in some ways it's wrong, right? Some of these little articles can be very important and useful, and even practitioner journals can, you probably have a bigger impact there than you would on an academic journal, but they're not valued by usually universities, and so you have to just be careful. I guess it would be to be aware of not only what your university values, but what the market itself values. And as long as you tap into both of them to some extent, you'll be fine, because if even things don't work out at the university, you'll still be valued on the market.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's for the junior and the young colleagues, right? Early market. What about mid-market, mid-career?
Yeah, I have a little bit different perspective as a department chair, because I like them to contribute to the department and things that are beyond just the research. But in mid-market, I think in mid-market, you get your chance. You've now got tenure. You've got a chance to do stuff that really you're passionate about, that you really find exciting, and that you can do longitudinal studies that are going to take 5 years. You can do books that have no payoff other than they let you get really deep into an area you're very interested in. And so I feel like at the mid-market is the time when you as an academic can spread your wings, and you should do what you really want to do, and become a professor in your own image of what you want to achieve.
Okay. You were very efficient, and we still have time, but I want to ask you, what's the question that I should have asked you but haven't?
Maybe where I got this background. A friend, somebody I knew from NASA sent it to me, and I thought it was really cool, so I used it. Yeah, I just am grateful. I think we get into the question may be how can you be happy as an academic, and I think the be happy academic is just generally being happy as a person, right? You do what you love, you focus on the things that are that are interesting to you and that you're passionate about. You know, if you don't see it as work, it's not work. You're grateful to, I'm so grateful for all the co-authors I have. I'm so grateful to all the reviewers. I've had so many papers get better through the review process, and it's very, you don't get a lot of gratitude being a reviewer generally, but you learn from, I've learned so much from co-authors, and they've been so helpful, and just be open, you know, to having new experiences and to taking opportunities, and just don't lose sight that I really think we're in the greatest job in the world. I mean, where else do you have the freedom to do what you want? I know that getting to the tenure level is stressful and can be difficult, but gosh, the autonomy you have and the freedom to do things the way you want to do, and research and learn, and be surrounded by people that want to better themselves and are trying to get more educated and improve themselves. It's just a great life. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Steve, for this interview. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience will agree with me. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be part of this group.